For your blessings. We're thankful for this time together. I'm thankful for the success that you are giving many of these participants as they are practicing these simple principles of health. I ask that you'll give each one of us success, and that you will help us to understand the help that is available, that you promise to give us as we ask for it. Teach us how to pray, teach us how to read encouraging scriptures that will spur us on our way, and teach each one of us how to depend on you for the help that only you can give. Be with me as I give this lecture tonight, and may it be a blessing. Help all of us to learn something new that will be useful to us in our health journey. Amen. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Well, first of all, want to welcome you back to the Best Way program. Many of you are having some spectacular success, and I know in your groups you're going to be talking about that. But one person walking 10 days in a row, that is incredible success. Congratulations. Today we're going to be talking about fat. That's the topic, and we're talking specifically about the fat that we eat. Lipids is another term for fat, and there are different categories of lipids. There are fats, there are oils, and there is cholesterol. We'll talk about each one of those. Lipids are a group of molecules that don't dissolve in water. You've probably seen the oil floating on top of the water. That is a lipid. It includes some things that are not fats or oils. Cholesterol is an example of a lipid that is not a fat or an oil. We'll talk about cholesterol. And waxes are also lipids, but they are not digestible. Here are some basics about fats. Small amounts of fat are absolutely essential for good nutrition and health. Fat in the food improves the tastiness of food. I think all of us can understand that. But more importantly for us as we're trying to lose weight, fat in food produces satisfaction. It produces satiety. And so understanding that is important. Fats are packed with calories. Fats contain 9 calories per gram of fat, and that's more than double carbohydrates and protein. Fat is not all bad because fat carries vitamins. We all understand how important vitamin D is. Vitamin A, vitamin E, and vitamin K are also extremely important vitamins, and without fat, we could not absorb them. Those are fat-soluble vitamins. Fat is a good place to start our more in-depth discussion of nutrition because fat is packed with calories. Every pound of fat that we're wearing around our middle on our belly has 3,500 calories. In order to lose 1 pound of fat, you must have a calorie deficit of 3,500. That sounds like a big number, doesn't it? Let's take a little bit of time to do some basic chemistry here. Here's a picture of a triglyceride or a fat. All fats are triglycerides. In this diagram, all the H's represent hydrogen atoms. All the C's represent carbon atoms, and you can see there's a few O's which represent oxygen. All the lines that you see on the diagram are chemical bonds, covalent bonds for those of you who remember some high school chemistry. A triglyceride is composed of a backbone, a glycerin molecule, and then 3 long chains of fatty acid. Corn oil and olive oil are examples of triglycerides, but margarine and butter are also triglycerides. Mono and diglycerides are, as the name would suggest, 1 or 2 chains of fatty acids connected to a glycerin backbone, and these are used in some commercial baking to make some products creamier. A saturated fat is a fat that has a hydrogen molecule bound to every single available carbon molecule. Here's an example. This is called palmitic acid. This is a saturated fat. It's saturated with hydrogen. Saturated fat foods are all the full-fat dairy products, such as butter. Also, red meats and processed meats contain a lot of saturated fat foods. Saturated fats are, in general, bad. They increase our total cholesterol. They increase our bad cholesterol, they decrease our good cholesterol, and they increase the risk of heart attacks and strokes. It would be healthy if we were all able to replace our saturated fat intake with monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. This would lower the risk of cardiovascular disease. We should not take in more than 5, maybe 7 to 10% of our fat as saturated fat. We really want to limit saturated fat. Here's an example of a monounsaturated fat. If you notice right in the middle, there are two hydrogen atoms that are missing. This creates a double bond between two of those carbon atoms. Now, monounsaturated fats are comparatively healthy. Olive oil, peanut oil, and canola oil are high in monounsaturated fats. These fats are fats that are liquid at room temperature but solid in the refrigerator. Most of you have probably noticed how if you've put olive oil in the refrigerator, it kind of gets solid there. It becomes a slushy sort of mixture. Here are some pictures of monounsaturated fats. Now, monounsaturated fats decrease total cholesterol, lower bad cholesterol, and reduce the risk of heart attacks. They also reduce the risk of stroke and slow the hardening of the arteries. Polyunsaturated fats contain more than one of those double bonds. Here you see an example. Linoleic acid is a polyunsaturated fatty acid. Corn oil and safflower oil contain more polyunsaturated fats. Now, these are healthy fats as well, but they should not replace monounsaturated fats in the diet. Here's some examples of polyunsaturated fats. We're all familiar with flaxseed, perhaps. Flaxseed oil is the highest in omega-3 fatty acids, as we'll see. Polyunsaturated fats are not only liquid at room temperature, they're also liquid in the refrigerator. And these are good fats. They help the body get rid of newly formed cholesterol. You've probably heard of omega-6, omega-3, even omega-9 fatty acids. Let's explain what that is. This is counting the number of carbon atoms from the end of the fatty acid molecule to where the first double bond occurs. And so here you see some examples of, we previously saw right in the middle, linoleic acid is an omega-6 fatty acid. So you count the carbon atoms, there's 6 of them, and then you come to that first double bond. Alpha linoleic acid on the bottom is a omega-3 fatty acid. Omega-3 fatty acids are found in flaxseed and fish oils. So here a picture of some foods that are high in omega-3 fatty acids. Of course, fish is high, but if you notice, per gram, flaxseed is much, much, much higher than even the fatty fish, and walnuts is an excellent source also of omega-3 fatty acid. Soybeans even have a lot of omega-3 fatty acids. These are good fats. They lower your triglyceride blood levels, and they also help with hypertension. Here's a slide that compares many common fats that we might use in our diet. Now, the red is saturated fat, and that's what we want to avoid. So you can see down at the very bottom, coconut oil is extremely high in saturated fat, and contrary to what you might have heard, coconut oil is not a health food. We want to avoid that. Up at the top, you have more of the canola oil, safflower, flaxseed oil, olive oil. These things are healthier for us. Let's talk about trans fats for just a moment, because I know you've heard of them. Fatty acids that are unsaturated in general naturally form a cis configuration, and you see a picture of that at the top. The double bond forms, and then the two fatty acid chains are coming off at angles. A trans configuration to an unsaturated fat causes the molecule to shift based on the high heat that's been applied to it, and it makes the molecule more straight. It behaves like a saturated fat, and even worse than a saturated fat. These are unnatural fats that our body, it kind of gums up the metabolic machinery of our cells. And since 2018, it's actually been outlawed in the United States. These come from partial hydrogenation of unsaturated fats, and they're very, the bakery industry really likes them because they have a very long shelf life and they tolerate heat very well. But they're bad for your health, and so as we said, they've been outlawed. There are small amounts in some animal products, but in general, if you see a package that says partially hydrogenated any sort of oil or fat, that's something that you want to be avoiding. Let's talk about nuts now, because fats are in general a source of calories, which is something we're trying to avoid here, but it turns out that you need some fat, and nuts, I'll skip straight to the punchline. Nuts are a very healthy source of that fat, but they are high in fat, and so we need to be careful. But nuts are very high in monounsaturated fat, and as we're going to see, they're very good at reducing the risk of heart disease. This is a study by Gary Fraser that was published back in 1992. It was a study of over 30,000 Californians who were over age 25. At the time they enrolled in the study, they were completely disease-free, and then they were followed for many, many years. And this was a completely new idea. This study is the one that introduced this to the scientific literature. If someone ate nuts, of these 30,000 people, they broke them into groups. If someone ate nuts more than equal to or more than 5 times per week, it reduced their risk of a heart attack by 50%. That was an extremely interesting finding that nobody knew up until this point. Well, let's ask the question, do nuts only benefit men who have more heart attacks, or do they also benefit women? Turns out that nuts benefit both men and women. They both have a decreased rate of heart attacks by approximately 50%. Men even a little bit better than that. Well, what about if you're young? Maybe you don't need nuts if you're young. Well, it turns out even if you're below or above age 80, you still have that same benefit of reducing your risk of heart attack. Maybe you're already a vegetarian. Maybe you are not eating any animal products. Do you still benefit from nut intake? And the answer is yes. It turns out it didn't matter whether you were a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian. If you ate nuts more than 5 times per week, it decreased your risk of a heart attack. Maybe you're a couch potato. Maybe you shouldn't eat as many nuts because, well, you're not burning the calories, and we're in this class to learn how to lose weight. Turns out, even those who were not getting much exercise benefited from eating a small bit of nuts every single day. So even if you're a couch potato, you really need to be eating a small portion of nuts. What if you're overweight? You're trying to lose weight. You came to Best Way and you learned that fat is packed with calories, and you decided you wanted to avoid all the fat, especially the fat in nuts. Well, it turns out that's not a good plan. You need to eat a small portion of nuts if you want to reduce your risk of a fatal heart attack. Even those who are overweight benefited from eating nuts. Well, what if your blood pressure is high? Do you still benefit? Yes. Doesn't matter what your blood pressure is, you need to eat some nuts. Which brings us to the question, which nuts might be best for us? Well, the most common nut that was eaten in this study was just the lowly peanut. And yes, I know, peanuts are not technically nuts. They're technically legumes because they grow in the ground. But because they have similar fats to other nuts, we classify them as a nut. And they're called peanuts for a reason. They're just nuts. We'll just call them nuts. And it turns out it doesn't matter which type of nut. All nuts were helpful for decreasing the risk of a heart attack. Here's a picture of the nutritional value of nuts. And it turns out that some of them have a few more calories than others. Macadamia nuts are one of my favorites. They are a little bit higher in calories and a little bit higher than fat than, for example, pistachios or cashews. I also love cashews. Pistachios are the highest in protein. Magnesium is a little bit higher in cashews. Polyunsaturated fats are probably highest in pecans. The point here is it's good to eat a wide variety of nuts. Another question that comes up has to do with the idea of should I eat my nuts plain, or could I have some salt with them, or could I dry roast them? And it turns out that you can oil roast nuts and not significantly increase their caloric value. As notice the calorie line here, there's a difference of only 2 or 3 calories by dry roasting them with some, or by roasting them with some oil to make the salt stick to them better. It turns out if the nut is already almost 100% fat, which it is, and you add a little bit of oil to the outside, it doesn't significantly change the amount of fat that you're eating. So don't worry about the calories, but it certainly does make the salt stick to it better. So if you're hypertensive, that might be a concern. Let's talk about cholesterol. Cholesterol is very different from fat molecules, but it's in the same category of lipids. You can see from the picture on the screen that I'll remind you, if you remember your high school chemistry, that every corner of those sticks represents a carbon atom, and there's some double bonds there, etc. But this doesn't look anything like the fat molecules that we saw previously. Turns out that cholesterol is very important. Every single cell in your body has cholesterol in the wall of it. It's part of the cell membrane. Your body makes cholesterol in the liver. And cholesterol is very important for many hormones. It's important for vitamin D metabolism. And all the bile acids that your liver excretes to help you absorb specifically fats are made from cholesterol. It turns out that your body balances cholesterol. If you eat very little cholesterol in your diet, your body makes more of it in the liver. If you happen to eat more cholesterol in your diet, your body synthesizes a little bit less. So the actual cholesterol levels in your blood, although I still am a big proponent for people not eating cholesterol in their diet for a lot of other reasons, it turns out that the cholesterol your doctor measures in your bloodstream is not as much related to the cholesterol you take into your mouth as it is to the total fat that you take into your mouth, because that cholesterol and the bile acids is reabsorbed by the body to help you digest that fat. So if you want to drop your cholesterol levels, you need to drop the level of fat intake, but remember to keep eating that handful of nuts every day. The problem with cholesterol-rich foods has less to do with the specific fact that they have cholesterol, but they are also associated with very high levels of saturated fat that hardens the arteries. Now, eggs are high in cholesterol, but they're also low in fat. We'll see something about eggs here in a moment. In general, the cholesterol your body makes is always better than the cholesterol you eat. You don't need to be eating much cholesterol, if any. It turns out that even though eggs are a good source of protein, for example, if you eat more eggs, you'll have a higher risk of a heart attack. If you, for instance, eat more than 2 eggs a day, it increases your risk of a heart attack by 30%. So that's something to consider. It's best to limit cholesterol from all sources and just let your body make what it needs. Your risk of dying for any cause even goes up if you eat more eggs. Here's a list of some high cholesterol foods. The one thing you'll notice from the screen is that these are all animal products. Turns out that we are animals, our body makes cholesterol, and all other animals' bodies also make cholesterol. And so if you're eating a plant-based diet, you're not getting any cholesterol in your diet, and that's a good thing. So my suggestion for some new directions for you for this week: eat less fat. This is the easiest way to decrease the number of calories that you are taking in with your meals. That's why we started our discussion of nutrition with fat. You'll get the biggest bang for your buck by thinking about what are the sources of fat in my diet and decreasing those, because that's going to give you the best weight loss as far as decreasing the number of calories in your diet. If you are going to eat fat, which all of us need to eat some fat, transition to better fats. We showed you lots and lots of slides showing that no matter how healthy or unhealthy you are, how old or young you are, what your weight is, what your blood pressure is, you need to eat some nuts at least 4 or 5 days a week. Just a small handful of nuts, only a small amount. They are full of fat, but you need to eat those good fats because they will make you healthier. They will reduce your risk of a heart attack, even if you are trying to lose weight. Eat less cholesterol-rich foods. These foods are not healthy for us for a wide variety of reasons, and our body makes all the cholesterol we need. Eat less food in general, especially that evening meal. Remember, we encourage you to eat a big breakfast and then less for lunch and perhaps no supper or a very small amount for supper, an evening meal. Remember to pray for strength and motivation. Remember to contact your group leader. We want you to contact your group leader 5 or 6 days a week via text message. And once a week, we want you speaking with your group leader to review your progress card and how things are going. And then, of course, read your scripture assignments. We've provided some assignments in your workbook that you can download that are going to be very helpful for you. And we know this will help you lose weight. We know it because we've measured it on prior programs. And so we encourage you to do that and keep track of that on your progress card. That's the end of my lecture. I'm going to transition at this point. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to ask Dr. Elvin Adams. I'm going to pin myself, and then Rachel, if you could pin Dr. Adams up here as well. I'm going to ask him a question that I just got asked in my clinic today. Let's see. Let me just go ahead and spotlight Dr. Adams here. So Dr. Adams, thank you for being with us. We just really appreciate you developing this program. And I had a patient just today who needs to lose a significant amount of weight to help with their hemorrhoids, believe it or not. And they asked me about the keto diet. They've done this in the past. It's been somewhat successful for them. Could you talk to us your thoughts about the keto diet?
Sure. And thank you for this lecture. It was very concise, and I think you conveyed a lot of useful information in a very short period of time. The keto diet is called the keto diet because it induces an acid situation in your body. We have a very carefully regulated acid-base balance in the body. And when you are on a keto diet, it shifts your acid-base balance toward the acid side. And it turns out that if your acid-base balance is on the acid side, you're not as hungry. And some people actually get nauseated. And because if you're not hungry, you don't eat as much. And so certainly the keto diet is one of the ways that a person can lose weight. What foods will give you ketosis? Well, I can tell you that fruits and vegetables shift your acid-base balance to the alkaline side, and it is high protein foods that shift it to the keto side. And so a keto diet is very high in protein, and usually it is animal protein. And because of the high fat, people do get kind of satisfied with it. The only problem with a high protein, high fat diet is it's not healthy for you. Your cholesterol goes up, your triglycerides go up. You may not be as hungry, but metabolically, your body does not want to be in an acidotic state, and it will work to try to shift you back to normal. And so I consider a keto diets to be extremely unhealthy. You can lose weight on it, and I can give you a very sad example. My brother-in-law, my wife's brother, has repeatedly used the keto diet, and he's currently in a rehab center from having had a major stroke. Now, I wouldn't say that the stroke was the most important cause, but this is one of the problems with the keto diet. It does raise your cholesterol, gives you abnormal lipids, and it can set you up for heart attacks and strokes. We don't want that. We want a diet that will reduce the risk of heart attacks and strokes, and nuts will do that for you.
Well, thank you very much. And I kind of think that most of us understand how we'd be very satisfied by eating a handful of nuts. It kind of gives us a feeling of satiety, and that's what the healthy fats can do for us. Well, thank you, Dr. Adams. Again, we'll be asking you more questions. I believe there's a form if you go to southbaysda.org and you click on that link that says Best Way, you can scroll down. There's a place you can submit questions, and we'll be answering some of those questions as we go through this program. At this time, I'd like to invite Peter Petgrave. Peter Petgrave is one of the elders at the South Bay Church, and Pastor Chris, although he actually is here with us, I think he's kind of on another meeting. Pastor Chris was supposed to be away in Timor-Leste, but which is, for those of you who don't know, is a small country in the middle of the Pacific Ocean somewhere, south of the Philippines, perhaps. And he's still working on getting over there. So Peter Petgrave has agreed to share with us a spiritual thought for the next 2 or 3 weeks here. And Peter, the time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. And tonight I want to talk about being connected. Now, we live in modern times, and with modern times comes modern things. In our homes, we have microwave ovens, dishwashers, blenders, juicers, and all that. So this evening, I have here a juicer, right? I use it to make my juices, and I even make some juice yesterday. It is a very good brand. It costs quite a bit of money. It have electric motor in there. It have a circuit board in there. It has all type of things in there to make it work, and everything there makes it work. But for some strange reason, when I press on this, it's not working. Who could tell me why it is not working? If you guessed and said because it's not plugged in, you are correct. Because when I plug it in like this, it works. Okay, so the Bible says in John chapter 15, verse 5, it says, I am the vine and you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. Just as how a branch is connected to a vine, that makes it sustained. Just like this juicer has to be connected to a power source, it will not work. And it doesn't matter how much it costs, what brand it is, or even if it's brand new, it still won't work unless it's connected. Now, a good example of this is Valentine's Day is coming up on Monday, and many people give their favorite individual rose, right? But one thing I noticed with those bunch of roses, they look all beautiful and smell nice. But after a few days, what happened to them? They all dried up. Why did they dry up? Just like the Bible says, they weren't connected. The vine, if it's not connected to the branch, it can do nothing. And so because we are spiritual beings, we are not just physical beings, we too have to be connected. But how do we stay connected in a spiritual sense? Verse 7 of that same John chapter 15 tells us, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, you will ask what you desire and that it shall be done for you. So we abide in Christ by reading his word. And guess what? In our workbook, we have some scripture texts there for you. They are not there by accident. They are there for a reason, for this very purpose. So as you go through this program and you read those scripture texts, it is part of the process to get you connected to a power source spiritually so you can have good results. Over to you, Eric.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. I really appreciated that. All of us need to be plugged into power, I'm sure. At this time, I'm going to invite Dr. Laura Lucas. I'm going to ask her to give us an exercise segment. Thank you, Laura.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Takes just a moment here to get this going. Okay, hopefully you see my slide on your screens now. So last week we introduced you to burst training, and this week I want to talk a little bit about what's next. How can we continue to improve our cardiovascular health? So we're going to review a little bit of what we learned last week, and then we're going to focus on a way that we might increase our training potential through our burst training. Again, the goal of burst training is to get us active and performing aerobic exercise or cardiovascular exercise. And how will we know if we are performing burst training correctly? You should get out of breath. You should feel your heart pounding inside your chest. It should be difficult to say a whole sentence to someone next to you or on the phone. If you are still able to talk the whole time that you are walking, you are probably not getting the cardiovascular exercise that you need to from that walking session. And it should make you not comfortable. It should not make you uncomfortable, but it should be not comfortable to continue to exercise hard. Okay. So this week, we are going to change a single variable, and that is the length of our burst. Last week, I told you, if you were brand new to exercise, that you could start with 20-second bursts. If 20 seconds was already easy for you, I hope that you increased up to maybe 30 seconds long. However, this week, we are going to increase our burst by 2 to 5 seconds. So if you started at 20 seconds, your exercise bout for your burst this week is 22 seconds. If you started at 30 seconds, your exercise burst is now 35 seconds, if you feel like you can handle it. Now, you might say to me, what if it's all I can do to get 20 seconds? Okay, good. Keep up at the 20-second burst for this week, but know that at some point it will become easier. And so try week by week to see if you can increase your burst. So maybe next week you'll be able to go up that 2 more seconds. Now the goal is to increase your heart rate. Once you've completed that burst, you want your heart rate to come back and slow down safely. So your breathing does matter. I like to put this Borg rating of perceived exertion scale on the screen because people, it's very easy for us to rate things on the 0 to 10 scale. So on this scale, we have 0 being at rest, and we go all the way up to maximal being just as fast and as hard as I can race. I don't want you to be in this deep orange or in this red. What I want you to be is in this yellow or this yellow orange. I want it to feel hard, or if you are already used to exercise training, you can go to really hard. But if exercise is new for you, this yellow area is the area that is your goal. Now realize that there is some time that when I am doing my cardio, my breathing sounds like I'm a dog panting. I'm just gasping for air, okay? So we want to make sure that you are getting the oxygen that your body needs. If I'm having trouble and gasping for air, I need to look at maybe my intensity is too strong for the conditions that I'm in right then. Maybe I have allowed myself to get deconditioned and I need to work my way up a little more slowly. Maybe it's really hot or really cold outside and my lungs can't handle that cold air, or it's so hot I'm not getting the air that I need to, or I'm overheating as I exercise. Maybe I haven't been drinking my water well enough. I have allergies, so maybe it's my allergies that are acting up and I need to go a little easier on my exercise for allergies, or maybe I'm starting to feel a little sick. And that's my body telling me that I'm breathing a little harder. Okay, I need to slow it down and do a little less this time than I usually would. So one other thing that I want to talk to you about tonight is the pursed lip breathing. Pursed lip breathing helps your recovery during that recovery time in between your burst sessions. So to do pursed lip breathing, I know it's a really big name, but all you have to do is to take a deep breath in through your nose like you're smelling a rose from a rose garden. And then when you're ready to exhale, you blow out of your mouth thinking that you are blowing out candles. So I might call this birthday candle breathing, okay? Because all you have to do is take a deep breath through your nose and blow out those candles. Okay, so your assignment this week, you are to try to change the length of your burst by adding 2 to 5 seconds per burst that you do. Please do not change your burst multiple times this week. Don't add 2 and then add 2 more to the next burst session. Just change your session one time from what it was last week. So if your session was 20 seconds last week, you're adding 2 more seconds. You're pushing yourself to go just a bit past your previous best to this week, even better. Also, try to help yourself recover faster through that birthday candle breathing. Taking that deep breath in through your nose, blowing out through your mouth, pausing a moment, and then repeating. Fight that urge, even though you feel out of breath, to hyperventilate. I hope you all have great exercise sessions this week and continue to have good success in your weight loss journey.
Well, thank you very much, Laura. I really appreciate that. The technical term for what she's referring to is PEEP. We use that on ventilators all the time to help people increase their oxygen levels. So it will help you a little bit in increasing the amount of oxygen that your lungs are actually extracting from the air that you're breathing. Of course, it does cost you some calories too, which it's harder to breathe that way, and that'll be helpful for you as well. At this time, I'm going to ask Rachel Detweiler. I don't see you here. If you could spotlight yourself and give us a lecture about some recipes with Rachel. Go ahead and spotlight yourself there.
Good evening, everyone. Today I have another fun plant-based recipe to share with you. It's called, we're going to make some nutty lentil patties. We're going to add a little bit of those healthy fats right into our burgers. It's really what these patties end up being, is something that you can use and substitute as a burger. So let's see, let's get started with this. All right, so here's our ingredients, very simple. We have in the forefront, you can see the oats and a pile of lentils on this plate. It's about 1.5 cups or just 1 can of lentils. an onion, some garlic, Bragg's liquid aminos. If you're not familiar with Bragg's liquid aminos, it's like a substitute for soy sauce. And it's kind of salty and better and to use than soy sauce, which is also fermented. Mrs. Dash, which you can use any all-purpose seasoning in this, and then some peanut butter. I make mine homemade, so you can see it's not just any jar of certain kind of peanut butter. But when you're looking for peanut butters, you would want to look for something that has no sugar in it, and that the ingredients are just literally salt and peanuts, or not even salt, just peanuts is just fine. And they're actually a lot easier to find than they used to be, but you definitely don't want sugar. The consistency changes when they add sugar to your peanut butter. So the lovely thing about this recipe is it is totally versatile. So you can use any bean that you want. You could use black beans in place of lentils. You could use chickpeas instead of lentils. You can use any kind, white beans, and replace those lentils. I really like lentils because they are really high in fiber, and they also have a really kind of almost a peppery taste to them. So I like to use them a lot. For the oats, you can substitute out from oats, and you can use, maybe you have some leftover brown rice in your refrigerator that you want to use up, or maybe you have some breadcrumbs that, it's that last piece of bread that's dry, and you can crumble those up and use that instead, because the bread or the oats are just a binder. So you can use the bread as a binder as well. The onion, we're just going to chop that up into small pieces. And of course, the only onions I have right now are like gigantic onions. So you wouldn't want to use that much onion, probably about a half a cup. And any seasoning that you like, you can add fresh herbs to this. If you don't use Mrs. Dash, you can use sage, you could use basil, you can throw just about anything in, curry powder to change the flavor for that. I chose to use peanut butter, but you could also change up the peanut butter. You could use almond butter. You could use, you can make almost any nut into a butter anymore. Or if you didn't want to use the nut butter, you could just chop up maybe half a cup of nuts and just put walnuts in, or sliced almonds. And the one last ingredient that you can add in here, and you'll never know it's in there, is you could add a tablespoon of flaxseed. Make sure it's ground and throw it in there, and it will also help to bind the burgers together. All right, and so the thing I love about this recipe is there's two ways you can make it. You can either take all these ingredients and you can throw them in a food processor, but if you don't have a food processor, and you just can throw it all in a bowl. And as you throw it in the bowl, you can just mix it all up. You can see that I chopped the onions, and the onions will release their moisture into it. And you can also see the garlic in the front, maybe you can see the garlic. And you just mix this up all very well. And if you do use other beans and you choose to mix it this way instead of using a food processor, you would want to smash the beans with maybe a fork a little bit, and some of the beans, or use the back of a spoon to kind of get some of so you have more texture to bind it together. And let's see. Then, yeah, there it is all mixed together. And it doesn't look as appetizing when you're making it, but that's okay, because it's going to be delicious when you're done. And here you can see that I went ahead, and this particular recipe makes about 6 patties. And you can see that it's, about the size, a little bit bigger than a golf ball in your hand. And you're going to smash these down until they're about 1/2 inch thick, and then bake them in the oven. And I use Silpat mats. I'm like a big proponent of Silpat. You can cook on Silpats and nothing sticks to them. You don't have to clean the pan. Nothing sticks to your pan. It's fabulous. And things brown on them very well without any oil. So you don't have to spray anything or add any of those bad fats. And that's one of the reasons I love it. And so after that, you can, what I did is I stuffed it into pita bread, and we actually ate these for lunch today. And I put some tomatoes and some peppers in it. You can add your favorite sauces and we like to put hummus in it sometimes. And stuff it with all the vegetables that you love, with cucumbers, and all the good things that you can think of. And they're absolutely delicious. I hope you all give them a try, and I hope your weight loss journey still goes wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you,
Do you
Rachel.
make your own pita bread?
Go ahead. We had a question, Rachel. Do you make your own pita bread? Rachel's unmuting herself there. Rachel, you're still muted. Gotta unmute yourself there. There we go. Do you make your own
Did you
pita
ask
bread?
me?
Mhm.
I do make my own pita bread, but I actually like to buy it sometimes, and that one I purchased. Just look for ones that don't have preservatives, or I do because I don't like the taste of the ones with preservatives. I think Trader Joe's carries some that have no preservatives in them.
Good, and thank you. Appreciate that, Laura. I was just going to ask the question, what are those mats and where can I get them? But I see Laura just put that in the chat. If any of you are interested in getting those mats that you can put right on top of your cookie sheet so you don't have to use oil sprays or anything like that, they're very helpful. I like them because it decreases the dishwashing, and I'm always in favor of that. Rachel, could you also use that similar recipe for more of a loaf or a roast, or would you need to do something different there? Have you ever put it in a pan?
Yes, you can do that. I don't normally do that because I find it's easier to manage patties and that they bake better. But you could technically put it would be in a very small loaf pan if you did it, because that's the recipe isn't a very big one. It doesn't make a
Sure.
lot.
So I saw a question from in the chat there about what nut butters might you consider using? What other nut butters have you used in the past instead of peanut butter?
I have used sunflower butter, but that's not nuts. I've also used tahini, which is also not nuts. And I will use almond butter. I prefer almond butter in a lot of them. And when I don't use the nut butter, I will use ground walnuts or chopped up walnuts to add the texture. I really like the flavor of just ground walnuts in it too.
All right. I do see some questions in the chat, and I'll try to respond to some of those here momentarily. Short answer is, I don't know. Laura, do we have an Amazon Smile link that individuals could benefit South Bay if they do purchase these things from Amazon?
Yes, we do.
How would they go about accessing that?
You should look for us at Chattanooga South Bay SDA Church through Amazon. So again, you can choose Amazon Smile and choose Chattanooga South Bay SDA Church.
All right. Aisha's asking for recipes for the food demos, and yes, we will provide the recipes for the food demos in one way, shape, or form. We're not exactly sure how yet. Recipes with Rachel is a whole addition to the Best Way program that we're working on. In answer to David Kennemer, no, I cannot give you a copy of the PowerPoints, but all of the worksheets are available. If you go to southbaysda.org, click on Best Way, and you can download all of the worksheets there. At this
And
time,
the lectures are, these are recorded lectures.
yeah,
and
you can watch the lectures, yes, but I can't give you the PowerPoints. What I can do, I want to give a little bit of instructions about our breakout groups. What we're doing now is the most important part of this health program. It turns out that me giving a lecture is the easy part, but what we want you to do is have personal interactions with individuals who can help you through this journey. We want small groups where people can talk about what works, what doesn't work, share recipes. And I'm just so thankful. I'm already hearing about some small group members are getting together with their small groups with table helpers and doing some exercise together. I would strongly support that. If you want to get together and cook some meals together, if you want to go out to eat, if you want to find a good vegetarian restaurant, that's what this program is built around. The social aspect of our being is a very powerful way that each one of us can change. So I want to encourage all of you, just a reminder, those of you who are the table helpers, looks like you all have your names in all capital letters. Those of you who are participants, if you can make sure you have your group number in front of your name, all of you should have that by now. And at this point, Michael is going to send us to our breakout rooms. One more reminder before he does that. And reminder for Michael, make sure you select the function where everyone automatically goes. They don't have to agree to go.
I selected.
I want you to remember, it is extremely important for this program to work for you. You must get a progress card, keep it with you at all times, fill it out, and once a week, discuss it with your table helper. We want to collect the data, not only to see how well you're doing, not only to keep you accountable, but also so we can show that this program works. We know it works in other states. Dr. Adams has collected a lot of data from Texas, for example. We know it works in Australia. We'd like to prove it works here in Tennessee just as well. So please take the time to fill out your progress cards, discuss them with your group leader, and send a picture of them to your group leader. All your data will be kept confidential and de-identified prior to any sort of data analysis. But we do want to encourage you to do that and encourage you to participate in your small groups. Enjoy it. All right, at this time, Michael, send us away.